Hi guys, so I'm currently on a cruise with my mum and my brother, and I thought I would make a little video just talking about the accessibility at the airport and the accessibility on the cruise itself. Apologies for the all over the place hair, it kind of looks like a lion's mane right now. I'm still kind of recovering from the holiday, but I thought I'd just do a little clip about the accessibility at the airport. Now, I've been to quite a lot of airports since being a wheelchair user, and I've always thought that the way they do it is really good. So we were at Bristol Airport in England, obviously, and that was really easy to get to because they've built a new road. Car parking and all that was fine. When we got to check-in, it took ages, but that was just because their systems were down, but that wasn't an issue. Wheelchair-wise, it was fine. We went to special assistance, and they said to us, would you rather use your own wheelchair to get to the gate? And we said yes. We got through security fine. You know, it was a really good experience, perfectly brilliant, as it often is. Once we got to the other side in Venice, someone else was using a wheelchair as well on the flight. It was fine. Someone came and got us. Like, we both said that we could do the steps on the plane. So we got off the plane and there was two people waiting with wheelchairs who basically just pushed us to the baggage carousel, and then from there we could get our wheelchairs. So that was really easy as well, and the person was really lovely, like complimenting how nice my hair looked, because it looked a lot nicer than it does right now and stuff like that. So that was a really good experience. We started our holiday in Venice, and obviously something that would be amazing to do there is a gondola ride. We thought they'd be totally inaccessible. We were wrong, because there's this really amazing company called Gondolas for All. As you could see in this picture, they have a wheelchair lift for wheelchair users to get the wheelchairs onto the gondola. I didn't need that, but it's a really good thing to know for anyone who does want to go on a gondola in Venice. Although Venice is a lovely city, it's not somewhere that I would consider very accessible, or that I would, urge people who are wheelchair users to go on holiday to. Most of the bridges have steps, and as it's practically completely covered by canals, that's a lot of bridges. I did manage to get to San Marco Square on the water bus, which was accessible. Around there, we did find some steps, some bridges. Although they had steps, they had temporary ramps, which meant I was able to go and have an Italian feast of pizza. I love pizza. I would say, again, if you're going to Venice or Italy, you would have to plan if you have food sensitivities. But yeah, it's not a hugely accessible city, and there wasn't that much that I was able to do. The ship itself was called the Norwegian Star. It was absolutely huge, but perfectly accessible. I mean, sometimes you had to wait a little while for lifts, but there was nowhere on the ship that I found inaccessible whatsoever. All of the restaurants were accessible, even the pool deck was accessible. The room was very small, but there was a little area that I could keep my wheelchair in. However, there were a few times that we had to fold up my wheelchair to take it in and out of the room. Getting on and off the boat at most places was not an issue at all. It just had a gangway that you could just go off. In Dubrovnik, we went on a taxi tour, which was great because my wheelchair could just fold up in the back of the guy's taxi. He took us to loads of really awesome places, and I would absolutely recommend going to Dubrovnik. It's so beautiful, and the old town is more or less accessible. In Montenegro, we had to use tender boats to get to the shore. For this, they had to take apart my wheelchair and carry it on and off the boat, which wasn't really very practical. Just a warning that on our specific boat, if your wheelchair couldn't come apart and weighed more than 100 pounds, then they wouldn't take it on the tender boat. Montenegro itself, Kotor, was beautiful and pretty accessible, so that was all fine. I hope you can excuse the dodgy filming of Olympia, which was an amazing place to visit. However, it did have some accessibility issues. I got to go in for free as a wheelchair user, but there was lots of gravel which I did get stuck in a few times. I couldn't always get on the ramps, and to see some of the best things, I had to get out of my wheelchair and walk. which isn't an issue for me, but might be for people who are completely reliant on a wheelchair. I was super excited to go to the Parthenon in Greece because I heard it was very wheelchair accessible. The first part of my journey up to the Parthenon was on this lift. This is a video of me going down, but I can assure you it was just as slow getting up. The next part is as follows in this terrible cage lift that you're about to see. I decided to leave the sound on so you could hear just how deafening it is. A bit more dodgy filming, I'm afraid, but as you can see it was completely gravelly, which I did get stuck in from time to time, and this was the best part. This is still at the Parthenon at the top of the Acropolis. Unfortunately, it got to be very non-wheelchair accessible. As you can see here, my mum and my brother had to lift my wheelchair on manual around lots of it. Obviously not a massive issue for me because I can walk a little bit, but if it was someone who was completely reliant on a wheelchair, they would get completely stuck. It wasn't as accessible as I was hoping, which was a bit of a shame really. However, despite this, I did still get to see the Parthenon at the Acropolis, which is something I'd totally recommend if you ever go to Athens. It was our last day in Split in Croatia, and I knew that I really wanted to paddle in the sea, but I didn't know if this would be possible with being able to get a wheelchair down to the beach. We were able to find this amazing beach in Croatia, which had concrete all the way up to the sand towards the sea, meaning that I could bring my wheelchair all the way down and could paddle in the sea only yards from my wheelchair. This made me so happy because that was the one thing I wanted to do in this holiday, was to go in the sea. On the way back, at the airport in Venice, we got there like horrendously early. So we couldn't actually go to check-in until we'd been there for like at least an hour already. And then when we got to check-in, the man was like, "Oh, we need to check in your wheelchair." And I said, "Oh, really? Usually I take it to the gate with me." And he was like, "Oh, well, we need to check it in." And then like 2 minutes later he said to me, "Oh, would you rather take it to the gate with you rather than have like me push your wheelchair?" And I said, "Well, yes, I would." So he was like ringing all these like different people to check that would be okay. I mean, if he'd have told me it would have been that much of an issue, I would have just said it's fine. But it took ages for him to like ring a load of people, check that it was okay, and it was fine. And in the end, I was able to do that. But it took like quite a lot of faffing around, which if he'd have said, "I need to check with this person, and this person," then I would have just said, "Oh, it's fine. I'll just use a manual wheelchair." But he was like, but in the end, it all worked out fine. We got to Bristol, my wheelchair was right there. I think that there might have been some language issues in Italy because they went to get me a special lift to get off the aeroplane, which I don't really need because I can do steps. But I don't think the Italian people told Bristol. But that was still fine, and my wheelchair was there, and it was easy, and we came home. I would absolutely recommend a cruise to anyone, spoonie or not, wheelchair user or not, but I think it's especially good for those people who might have a disability but want to see lots of places. You wake up in a different place, so you don't have to worry about travelling. Whenever you are travelling, you can lay down in a bed, which is definitely a result for anyone with a chronic illness. Also, getting around the ship was fine, and also because you're going to a lot of different places, you're only out for a few hours a day, which makes it a lot easier, I think, well, it did for me on my body. And also, you can go back to the ship at any time during the day. If you need to stay in the ship, that's fine. If you can only manage an hour, but you're at the port for 4 hours, that's fine. I just think that it's a lot very easy for wheelchair users and people with disabilities and just anyone in general. I mean, my mum and my brother absolutely loved the cruise as well. It was a fab holiday, absolutely amazing.